Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of you. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of Daily Stock, we are going to look at what is happening in the Apple after the release of its quarterly earning. We got the quarterly earnings for the third quarter of 2023 and there the Apple has registered decline in terms of its total revenues, and that has weighed on its share price in today's session, where it has gone on to close at the lowest level of the day. So these results have changed the trajectory of the Apple share price in the short to medium term, and whether it will change the trajectory in the longer term, that is something for us to ponder on, and maybe it will be much more clearer in a couple of weeks. But as things stand, I think there are some key takeaways from these quarterly earnings and the way the Apple share price has reacted. And using these two factors, the fundamentals as well as technicals, we can look at the possible opportunities which might emerge with higher probability of making money for us. So we will be looking at the fundamentals first, and afterwards we will shift our gaze to the technical side of the story as well. If we go into the fine print of the Apple's quarterly earnings, it has clearly stated that the services revenue have gone on to touch a new all-time high. So the result is clearly telling us that the Apple's various services, including its streaming and allied services, are proving to be a brighter spot, even though the sales of its key products, including the iPhone, which is the lead product for it, which brings in the most revenue, the Apple iPhone sales have been softer, and this quarter usually tends to be a softer one because in next quarter we will have the launch of its new flagship, the iPhone 15, and many people tend to prefer to wait it out, and once the new product launches, they tend to go for the buying of it. So that effect is also possibly a cause of these revenue slowdown, revenue decline in terms of year on year. But once we consider the larger picture, we have seen the revenue of the Apple decline year on year for the last 3 quarters. That is, all the 3 quarters of this financial year have registered the decline in revenues for the Apple. So that is also one thing to keep in mind. And this has been a larger story for most of the major tech players as well, because last year was the year of rebound from the pandemic. So last year, the growth, the revenues, the profits were very high for most of the tech companies, but then the economy changed, and after the gradual opening of the economy, we have seen many of these tech players have taken a hit on their earnings, and also because of the high base effect, the revenues have failed to match the prior year's earnings, and we have seen these negative numbers in terms of year-on-year data. Let's look into the more details provided by the company itself. This is the result posted by the Apple on its web page. Another factor here, we have installed base of active devices at all-time high. So that is also one thing to take note of. Now let's go into the actual results. This is the statement of operations for the company, and here this is the fine print. If you look at the numbers for the quarter ended July 1 and compare it with the last year's third quarter, here we have this decline of around 5 percentage point approximately. But at the same time, as the company stated, we have this services revenue at a record high with substantial growth being observed on that front. So that is one bright spot in otherwise not so good results for the company. And the company has even failed to live up to the expectations of the most of the analysts, and that is also weighing on the stock negatively, where we have seen substantial decline in today's session. Now, if we look at the margin of the company has remained more or same on the similar lines, so there is not much of a difference on that front. If we look at the geographical spread of the company's revenues, then the Americas remain the biggest market, biggest revenue generator for the company, followed by Europe, and then comes the China. Another notable contribution comes from Japan. Then the rest of the Asia Pacific put together just equals, or it is slightly more than the Japan. So we have these total net sales. And as I stated earlier, also the lead product from the company is iPhone, and it brings in the major chunk of the revenues. And then the second category stands out as services. So of late, the services segment has become a major revenue generator for the company, and even in this quarter, it has shown considerable growth with these numbers, the revenue standing at the record high. For rest of the categories, the decline is there, apart from these wearable homes and accessories segments where we have slight increase. Otherwise, the iPad has been one of the hardest hit segment of the company in this slump, and the Mac sales are also lower. So the story is clearer for the Apple, and I think in the next quarter we are likely to see rebound in the sales figures. The revenues are likely to rebound because the company launches its new products in the month of September, even though there will be only a month of the quarter which will have these numbers boosted by these new product launches, but nevertheless it is likely to offer better revenues, and we might even see these product net sales getting better from this quarter. Compared to this quarter, we are likely to see better figures for the next quarter of this year. Now let's go to the technical side of the story and see how things are shaping up after this slump in the prices of the Apple shares post the release of its quarterly earning. So this is where it was trading yesterday, and after the results came in the post market, the Apple was trading lower, and it has continued to do so in today's session as well. It consolidated for a couple of hours and then again dived on the lower side to close more than 3 percentage point lower, almost 4 percentage point lower if you look at the yesterday's closing level and today's closing level. It is substantially lower, and it seems to have changed the trajectory in short to medium term. Now I think we have to look at the Apple's stock from the bearish prism because it is likely to offer us more opportunities to short it rather than going long. But right now, I don't really think is the time to short it because the risk reward ratio is not going to be as favorable as our immediate swing high is quite high, close to this high. So that is one thing to keep in mind. But if in the coming week, once we come back for trading on Monday, after that, if we see some sort of consolidation and any sort of sale on rally approach can be taken for these Apple stock, and once we have slight correction, slight consolidation with the price showing the signs of stabilizing on the higher levels, we can indeed go for shorting the Apple stock with the expectation of these slump in the share prices to continue. So that is one key takeaway from these Apple's quarterly earning, as we have the fundamental side of the story on our side. I think both these factors taken together are pointing to the bearish pressure to prevail on the Apple stock price in near future. So from short term to medium term perspective, we can keep looking for shorting opportunities and go for short sales whenever we have these opportunity to short it after due correction. At these levels, if we go for shorting, as I said earlier, also the risk reward ratio is not that favorable, and that is something to keep in mind. If we change the chart to larger time frame, even daily, there you will observe that this is the first significant decline for the Apple in a long time. In last few months, we have seen the Apple share price continuously rally higher and higher. And now, if we look at the picture, the charting, here this is the first big slump for the Apple share price since it started to rally around the start of the year. So that is going to weigh heavily on the near-term outlook as the Apple has declined past this prior consolidation phase low, and now we have the formation of lower low. So all we need is a lower high next time around to go short, and I think that opportunity is likely to come next week if we are fortunate enough, and if we see some sort of consolidation with slight correction on the higher side. If the Apple share price stabilizes on the higher side, we will indeed have the opportunity to go short in it. So that's my insight on the Apple's fundamental as well as technical outlook. And if any of you have any query or any idea to share, do write to me in the feedback, and I'll be more than happy to take the discussion forward. So that's all from my side for today's session. I will be back on Monday with a equally important, equally interesting stock to consider. In Monday's session, we will be looking at the quarterly earnings of the Amazon, another major tech player in the industry, and we will see how things are turning out for the Amazon stock as well. So that's all from my side. See you next time around next week. Till then, have fun. Good day. Goodbye.